So, College Nationals was about a week and a half ago. I've actually recorded this talking section a bunch of different times just because I wanted to get it right. Not only the words, but I wanted to like feel true to the vlog style that I've normally done. It's been like a week and a half, and I've had all these ideas for what I want to do, but I'm finally getting it done now. I came out here. I'm in like the lobby of the apartment building here on campus, just because I thought it'd be a nice change of scenery for the vlog. But yes, my May vlog this year is pretty much entirely just going to be a Nationals vlog, because A, that's the biggest thing without a doubt that has happened this month, but B, it's also pretty much the only thing that's happened this month. I mean, other small things. There was a lot of conflicts and stress with my part-time job, so I quit that. But I have my full-time job in the fall, so I'm not too worried. I can also find some other work for the time being. I'm going apartment hunting tomorrow to kind of find a spot for next fall for when I'm teaching. There's a lot of questions about the future of Davenport Frisbee for me, but these are all things I think I'll cover in depth later, because the big thing is Nationals. So for those of you who may not know, the Davenport Ultimate Frisbee team, we made the national tournament, right? So Nationals. And for the whole season, we've been expected to be at the national tournament, and we finally made it. We were the number 1 seed going in. We were expected to win this thing just because of the pure talent of my teammates. Yeah, the national championship was in Burlington, Washington. That's about an hour outside of Seattle. This was the D3 Ultimate Frisbee National Championships that we were competing for. So competition was 3 days long. First day being pool play, second day being bracket play, third day being just the national championship. Burp for the vlog. We haven't gotten a good clean burp for the vlog in a while. Yeah, and Nationals was my dream. Not only to be competing with one of the best teams for the national championship, but also, like, my dream had a bunch of different ways it could have come to fruition, right? Because, like, to say that your life dream is just one thing that isn't always within your control is like, you know, that's just setting yourself up for failure, right? So there's many different ways that I was envisioning living out my dream at D3 Nationals. One of which is, you know, winning the championship. One of which is just being a starter and a main guy for one of the best teams at the tournament. And one of them was simply just performing well at the national championship, getting the chance to play points at the national championship, put up stats, and prove that at that level, I was talented enough to be recognized. And so there's many different ways that my dream could have come to fruition at Nationals this year. But like I said, Nationals was kind of a disappointment, and I kind of felt like I had my dream robbed from me. It's not just that I didn't achieve it, but that certain things happened that really just ruined the weekend for me. And so what really happened this weekend was this. On the Davenport team, I'm about middle of the roster. So what this meant is that I got some starting reps, but maybe not as much as a normal starter would. But it also meant that I was like solidly above some of the people who were only there for subs, right? So on day one, when we were in pool play, we were beating most of those teams pretty handily. just because there's a pretty large skill gap between the top teams at nationals in D3 and the bottom teams at nationals in D3. Part of just how the sport works, but also we were the number 1 seed, so we were beating these pool play teams pretty handily. And there was one game where it was a little close in the first half, and in the second half we locked back in and won pretty easily. But the issue was that I, including some of the other people who were in the middle of the roster, but mostly me, kind of got overlooked the whole day. When we were losing games, which was really just one game on pool play, I got pulled out for better players because we were like, oh, we're losing, we need to get back in the lead. When we were winning games, I got benched for worse players than me. And when we were kind of like even in a game, I would play maybe 2 or 3 points and then I'd get pulled. And so what really ended up happening is that I didn't get a ton of points on the first day of nationals. And this really rubbed me the wrong way because it felt like everyone else was getting some chance to play and perform and see how they could do at nationals, and it just felt like I wasn't getting that opportunity. I mean, when it comes to the starters, there's only 7 spots on the line, and for the defense line, which I was on, we had 8 people, and so me and this other guy would basically split that 7th spot, and the other 6 people just got to play pretty much the whole time. And so even when we were going even in games, even when we were playing the starting D-line that I was technically a part of, I was getting 1 every 4 points at best. And that would last maybe 8 points, and then I'd get subbed. And so that means like 2 points of play for me a game. And it was just frustrating in that moment because I knew that I wasn't getting the playtime I deserved. Whether that was to be bumped up to a starter and get more playtime there, or to be told, hey, you're not good enough to be a starter, and to get bumped down and to play with those lower guys. But that's the thing, is that they gave time and space for people who were committed to the program, for people who've played on the team who just weren't good enough to be our starters, to shine at nationals, to play at nationals. The third game of the day against Franciscan was pretty much majority played by the bottom of the roster. Or they would have mixed lines where it was mostly bottom of the roster and then 2 or 3 starters. But still, the middle guys would get cut out of that. And so it was just really frustrating because it felt like either in the games where I was, in the games where we were playing starting roster or the games where we were playing bottom roster, in one of those 2 games, I should have been playing as well. But in reality, me and a few other guys kind of just didn't get that much playtime because we were middle of the roster. And it was awful. Genuinely, day 1 of pool play is when I felt like I had my dream robbed from me. Because, like, sitting on the sideline of that Franciscan game, I knew that was a game where I could have been the guy, where I could have racked up some stats, where I could have shown my skill, where I could have lived my dream out of proving that I deserved to be at that level, and I didn't get it. And just, I knew then that was, my dream was gone there. Because at best, on day 2, I would be getting half of a starter reps, which also isn't my dream. And yeah, it hurt. It was awful. I was having, a really strong emotional response to that on the sideline of the game, of game 3, and I couldn't really show those emotions. I couldn't really process those emotions in the moment because I chose to be a good teammate, and I chose to be happy for the guys who were getting playtime, and I chose to, not bring the vibe down, right? But it was really frustrating because I knew even on pool play of day 1 that I was getting completely ripped off, that I was being completely overlooked by my coaches, completely disrespected, and just losing my dream. And so after pool play on day 1, it was so bad that I took like 10 minutes after our final game and was just sobbing on the sideline because I felt like a failure. I felt like I was a fraud. Like coming here to Davenport was just luck, and that I hadn't earned anything that I had gotten because I felt like I didn't have anything to show for it. I felt like clearly I wasn't wanted in the program because I wasn't getting anything that anyone else was getting. And this wasn't just like I wasn't good enough, because again, the bottom of the roster was getting at least some portion of time to do something. You know, they got a majority of that Franciscan game to try and to play and to show what they could do. And so, yeah. And then it gets worse because, you know, I had my moment. I felt ripped off day one, but we got back to the hotel after pool play, and I had some time to process my emotions, and I was like, it's not over for me yet. Tomorrow, in bracket play, I will be getting some play time. At the very least, I'll be splitting starter rep spots with this other player. And those few points that I get on day two are going to be the times that I prove that I, A, deserve a starter spot, or B, that I was being overlooked. And later that night, just before I went to bed for day two, my coach called me down to the hotel lobby, and she said, like, you know, these conversations are never easy. I really hate to do this, but tomorrow you're not going to be a starter. Tomorrow you're going to be a full sub, and we'll play you if we need to save some players' legs. And day two, I didn't end up playing a single point on day two. And so again, it was crushing. I thought that I had more chances to show. I thought that whatever. And the fact of the matter is that decision in that moment is insanely disrespectful. Because if you would have told me weeks before nationals that I was not going to be a starter and that I was benched, I still would have been upset. I still would have been hurt. I still would have tried to prove you wrong, right? But that's just like life. You know what I mean? Sometimes you try to be at a certain level and you're not, and that happens. And then I would have had time to be ready for my role at nationals, and I would have been practicing with the lower level roster players, and we would have had that game in first kitchen to play. But that didn't happen. Instead, I was led along for weeks to believe that I would be playing at the highest level with the highest end of our team to compete for the national championship. And the night before, I got told no. And so that just added to the disappointment for the weekend. And at this point, you know, it's just too late to say anything. I don't want to detract from what my team is trying to do, which is win the national championship tomorrow. I don't want to make it about me. I don't want to be a poor teammate. I want to, you know, celebrate the people who do get that opportunity, because they're my friends and my teammates that I've been practicing with all year. But it sucked. Yeah, it sucked for me. And so we went into day two. Quarterfinal game was a little scary. We realized that some teams, or at least I realized that some teams were better than I thought. We got to game two, which was the semifinal game against Middlebury. And unfortunately, the Davenport team lost that game. And once again, it sucked. It was a total disappointment. It was awful. And I was on the sideline the whole time. Like, I wasn't even the player on the field losing the game, but the emotions that were happening after we lost that game, when we were supposed to win the whole thing, seeing my teammates when their dream had been lost, it was I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. It's exactly like it's like in the sports movies. It's heartbreaking, because not only had I been heartbroken for the past day or so, but then on top of that, for my teammates to also suffer just a devastating heartbreak in the bracket play was really rough. And you could tell it was hard on my teammates too, based on just the vibes after the game. Because we had all had this goal, personally and as a team, to win the national championship. And we could have done it. In fact, you can argue we should have done it. We were a very talented team, but at the end of the day, we just didn't get it done. And so, yeah, for all of those reasons, nationals was just a huge disappointment for myself and for my teammates. Yeah. And I know that I'm pretty justified in the way I feel because because like I know I'm justified in the way I feel and that's all I need. But B, like I took a few days for everything to kind of simmer down, emotions to kind of taper off. And I talked to my coach and I was like, listen, what happened at Nationals was wrong. And thankfully she agreed and she saw the mistake. And it's very validating. I also had a few teammates who, when I, kind of vented to them, they said the same thing. They were like, you're right, John, that's not fair. That's wrong. You should say something. And so it's nice, especially as someone who tends to be dramatic, tends to be, I tend to be a complainer. I tend to love to complain about everything. To know that in this moment that my complaints were righteous and justified, and that I had something real to say about that moment was nice, and that I wasn't just being dramatic or being selfish about it. So yeah, May was a month of disappointment. I feel like I'm talking really level-headed about it right now. I wanted to do this sooner after. Prep for the vlog. But again, for a variety of reasons, I just had to keep re-recording, and now the emotion of it is all kind of just past. But like my teammates, I have come to a really great spot. And my teammates have come to a really, I think, good and healthy spot after such a devastating loss, which really speaks to the character of the people on the Davenport team. But it was pretty soon after our loss, within 24 hours, that people were already talking about, thinking about, and setting their eyes on the next thing, whether that's for Davenport, the team, or for them themselves. And, we weren't completely over the loss within 24 hours, but it says something about my teammates. It says something about the Davenport team that we were very quick to say, what is next? What does this mean for us? What is next? And I want, I think that I'm coming to a very similar spot. And I want that to be something that kind of drives me. I want it to be, I want the failures that happened at Nationals to be something that I use for my future for the better. But more importantly, is that decision that is coming from my coach is feedback, right? And if I take that as a personal slight to who I am as a person, then I'm reading into it all wrong. But I want this failure of mine, I want this heartbreak, this disappointment to become something that fuels me. I want it to become something that helps me to defy expectations in the future. I want it to be something that helps me set my own limitations in the future and accept that sometimes I'm not always going to be the best. Sometimes I'm not going to be the starter. But I'm already planning. I was planning before Nationals for this summer to be a reset, for this summer to be a push for something greater. And this last weekend at Nationals is just greater reason for me to go all in on myself. Getting the full-time job here in Grand Rapids, seeing the potential I have for myself, not only as a person, but as a Frisbee player this past year, and having all of that culminate in a disappointment just gives me so much reason to have this next year, to have this next summer, to have the next day be a day to push myself to be better. And so that's what I'm gonna do. Because my coach might have thought she was making the right decision by benching me, but I think she was making the wrong one. I had club tryouts the other day. I didn't get invited to play for that club. I think they made the wrong decision. And I have spent the last 4 years of my life proving people wrong, specifically when it comes to Frisbee, but not only that, but also in everything else in my life. The amount of people that told me I was crazy for taking on more grad school money to come up to Grand Rapids, and now I've found a greater life here that I think I would have found anywhere else. I have proved people wrong day after day, week after week, year after year. And I do not plan on stopping anytime soon.
shot is up. And it is caught by number 0, John Peterson, at the edge of the end zone. And John Peterson